Thank you, Anna. It's such a pleasure to be here to share with you the Botswana Savings Bank story and to talk about how Botswana Savings Bank endeavors to make banking impactful to society and the communities that we operate within. This is a picture of the Okavango Delta. The Okavango Delta is in the northwestern part of Botswana. And because of the delta, we have, though, communities that are in the delta. The government has marketed the delta very well as a tourist attraction, and indeed it is one of the most visited places in the country. Botswana Savings Bank's mandate, therefore, is to ensure that even in the delta, where we believe that it is inaccessible, even for the guy who is driving the canoe, this canoe in Setswana is called a mokoro, and it is the Uber of the northwest region. So a child grows up knowing that when they eventually get emancipated and take over what their parents does, it is partly to drive the Uber. And how are they going to drive the Uber? Because BSB has enabled it. We ensure that this driver has the ability for these tourists to pay him, even when they are amidst the water and the hippos. This is where we are. This is our network. And I just would like you to take note for now of the yellow spots, because I'll speak to that in a bit. But just to mention that Botswana Savings Bank is 100% owned by the Botswana government. It was formed in 1992 as a statutory bank, and therefore exists under an act of parliament. The government, though, recently is intending to privatize it. So, but for now, it is under the act. And its basic mandate is to ensure financial inclusion, financial literacy for the underbanked and the unbanked. So you will see then how these yellow spots then relate to what digitization potentially will do. Just to take a step back, the role of banking is to bring lenders, borrowers, and depositors together, is to ensure that transactions are safer, easier, and very convenient, is to also ensure that there's funding available to create a better livelihood for the communities. It aids all the economic activity that happens both at business level and at household level. So if you have this as a context, therefore, the impact that Botswana Savings Bank does or creates is effectively to respond to what the role of a basic bank should be. So we've done that in the first instance by providing the basic products, lending products. We have both secured and unsecured. And then we also have deposits all types of deposits, basic savings. And you will also note that we tend to focus a lot on the households. And when we go onto the business side, we tend to focus on the micro and medium enterprises for the basic reason that that is where the populace is. So for that impact to be felt, we have to be amidst the populace, right? And it is through then our banking products that reach these communities. And remember, the communities that we impact, just to give you an illustration, we have a scheme with the various unions, either those for manual workers unions or teachers unions and so on. So when you look at then the spread of where the teachers are, they are in the most remotest areas. But a relationship with business, with Botswana Savings Bank will ensure, therefore, that banking is accessed even in the most remotest areas. I'm just being very graphic about this so that you can understand the difference between Botswana Savings Bank and any other commercial bank. Because in most cases, the areas that we then have a representation at, generally it's non-economic for most, right? And yes, because we are also fulfilling a mandate by our shareholder, but as we fulfill that mandate, we are also creating a significant and important impact in the livelihoods of the communities. So this impact we've done through accessibility. I think we've spoken about all these digital channels that are now prevalent, that we've also latched onto. On the extreme right, it is your right, that picture there, we have over 80,000 accounts that were traditionally operated through a passbook. It basically meant that customers could not access their money unless they went to a physical brick and mortar. We are now converting all those passbooks into a debit card. So you can imagine the impact that's going to be created there. You know, in my mind, it's like a tsunami, because overnight, those 80,000 customers will be able to buy and swipe. They'll be able to access the over 600 or so ATMs in the country, as long as they're Visa branded, because the card is a Visa branded card. So you can imagine with that, they can then do all types of transactions. So through accessibility, that's one of the reasons why we are saying the more accessible it is, the better. Traditionally, again, we've tended to have brick and mortar. Over the years, we've opened new branches, again, in some instances, in very remote areas. And remember, again, when we go into that remote area, we are bringing in financial and bringing banking to the roots. And these are just pictures that demonstrate the various ways and the different stages that we've gone through as we endeavor to become accessible. Partnerships are quite important, and I think throughout the day-to-day, we've spoken about the criticality of recognizing that this journey cannot be done alone. We partnered with Old Mutual. Old Mutual Insurance Company is one of the oldest insurance companies in Southern Africa. They have a very solid financial literacy program. Instead of reinventing our literacy program, we partnered with them and we deliver financial literacy together. It gives us might because then we are able to cover so much more than we would otherwise if we started our own program. And you see, I happened to actually be with them in one of the, in that picture. We were about 500 kilometers away from the city. And we had gone to a village and we were delivering financial literacy there. Quite fulfilling for me because when you are in Exco and sitting in the big towers, you actually do not appreciate the kind of impact that you create when you decide to go into a partnership with Old Mutual, and then you go out there and you actually describe a debit card in Setswana without calling it a debit card. And you'll find how spoiled we are, because when we speak English, when we then speak vernacular, to describe a debit card and all these transactions and how they work in vernacular, quite interesting. But you come out fulfilled because that person in the rural village then is so wowed by what this little card can do. And that is the impact that when we come out of there is very fulfilling to have achieved. Also through partnerships, we through the corporate social responsibility, we've gone into communities and identified certain needs at different times. During the COVID era, when children couldn't go to school because of COVID and the risks of contaminating it and so on and so forth, we bought masks for a lot of the schools in the rural areas for the children and the teachers. And by the way, most of the parents of these children generally could not even afford to buy a mask. So bringing it to them, ensuring that their children continue to get educated was something that was quite appreciated. In another village, we went and gave them computers to allow children to be in the times, the digital times, so that they can be able to access internet for their learning. Part of that is very aligned to the government mindset agenda of digitizing the country. So we were quite aligned with that and promoted that digital set agenda. There's a village as well that has a school that didn't have an assembly area. So when it rained or during the scorching summers, children and teachers could not come together and either for announcements or just coming together for morning sessions and briefs and so on. So one of the branch managers saw this need, and we constructed a shelter that we called Lecha. Lecha is actually a name of a product, a personal loan product, which means lagoon. So in the same concept as a lagoon that collects water into a single area, this is what this shelter was. It was a point where the school can come together and talk about the affairs of the school or enjoy each other's company in whatever they do. And again, these children are going to grow up knowing Botswana Savings Bank. They will grow up believing that this bank had an impact during the time that I grew up. And therefore, this is one customer that we will put in our books. We are also in partnership with the government through the Ministry of Local Government that has beneficiaries of grants, various types of grants, war veteran, disadvantaged, all types of disadvantaged issues to whom they give grants to on a monthly basis. We issued 42,000 cards, also banking the unbanked. Generally, most of these beneficiaries used to go either to the post office to get paid or go to the ministry itself to receive their grant. With this, they will be able to now have their grant put in an account, and they can do anything and everything. Some of them actually had to travel close to 300, 400 kilometers to go to a center where they could then get paid. But now, with this, they simply go, in some instances, not even 10 kilometers to access an ATM through which they can then receive their grant. Botswana Savings Bank is a member of the World Savings Bank Institute. The Institute has every year a theme that talks about saving, talks about financial literacy. And every year we select a village, a community, or a settlement where we will go there, speak about financial affairs. We will endeavor to do this every year, and we have done it actually for the last 30 years, where we provide financial literacy. And again, in most cases, when we get there, a lot of the basic banking products are not known. So the extent to which we are meeting or we are going out of our way to ensure that financial literacy becomes key is actually fulfilled through our partnership with the World Savings Bank as well. The lady in the middle there is a Herero woman whose origin is actually in Namibia. It's Namibians that settled in Botswana donkey years ago. And for all the years that she's been in Botswana, she had actually never known a bank. She kept her money under a mattress. The Hereros are very rich in cattle. So every 3-4 months when they sell their cattle, they go to a town where they are paid, where they receive their 50,000. She comes back with it, puts it under the mattress, and then purchases whatever she needs as and when. So we were a savior to her because her view was, I at least don't need to carry my cash anymore, and it can be safe and secure in a bank. Finally, it's important to note that we do recognize that through partnerships, we will be able to fulfill our mandate. And these partnerships primarily or should I say fundamentally, has come through our relationship with CR2. A lot of what we have done, I mean, when we started with ATMs, the software program that we use, BankWorld, is a CR2 product, which facilitated our first step into digital banking. And we also recognize that ultimately agency banking is going to be the one that will take Botswana Savings Bank to the next level. Remember those dots that I spoke about in the first slide? Those dots are places that we have identified, remote as they may be, but agency banking is going to work quite well. We are going to ensure that through agency banking, our presence will be felt. Not only will it then fulfill our mandate of financial inclusion, and as I like to define financial inclusion, to mean accessibility, to mean timeliness, to mean affordability, and to mean financial literacy, because we now will be able, through agencies, through financial inclusion, to teach and ultimately be very impactful in what banking is and what banking endeavors to fulfill. Thank you.